Shota Yasooka piloted this Grixis control deck to an 8-0-2 finish at Pro Tour Kaladesh. This deck has very few win conditions, 4 Thing in the Ice, 2 Torrential Gearhulk, and 2 Wandering Fumarole, backed up by a ton of removal. Let's get down to the games. Here we are for Game 1 with Shota Yasooka's Grixis control deck. Let's play first, as I imagine is correct to do with this format, and let's see what we have. We have a Galvanic Bombardment, 2 Unlicensed Disintegrations, Transgress the Mind, and a Void Shatter. I think this is probably a keep. We have access to red mana with Evolving Wilds, and Sunken Hollow, even though enters the battlefield tapped, is going to give us at least our red and black. I think I'm going to go ahead and keep this. Now remember, the Pro Tour Gauntlet, or at least running the Pro Tour Gauntlet, is supposed to be a simulation of what to do, or rather how the pros and what the pros played at the Pro Tour. So we'll see what happens here. I'm going to go ahead and crack my Evolving Wilds at end of turn, get that mountain, and see where we go. An island is a pretty good draw here. I'm actually able to play out the island here first if I want to, and then the next turn the Sunken Hollow will enter the battlefield untapped, so let's lead with that. I wasn't able to cast anything but the Galvanic Bombardment here anyways, so we're still able to hold that open. Opponent leads with Game Trail and Mountain. Okay, so this looks like the opponent is running one of the red-green energy decks that was pretty common at the Pro Tour. I'm going to happily bombardment that. And we have 2 options here. We can either Transgress the Mind or hold up Void Shatter. Given the fact that the red-green energy deck is mainly based around creatures, and we have 2 Unlicensed Disintegration to hold up after the fact, I think I'm going to go ahead and play the Sunken Hollow here, and go ahead and Transgress the Mind. See what the opponent's running. Indeed, they have access to triple Harness Lightning, Incendiary Flow, another Longtusk Cub, and a Tireless Tracker. Tireless Tracker, our only hit here. So the opponent effectively has 3 dead cards in the form of Harness Lightning right now. That's really nice for us. That does mean they're going to play a Cub next turn, but that is A-okay. I'm going to go ahead and exile their Tireless Tracker and just pass the turn. Seems to me we are in a pretty good spot. Although, truth be told, those Harness Lightnings will get very, very awkward later in the game when we're trying to win with a 5-6 or a, well, 7-8 is pretty big in the form of Wandering, sorry, not Wandering Fumarole, Thing in the Ice. And Wandering Fumarole is a good draw here for us. We're just going to go ahead and play that and pass the turn. I don't really want the opponent to get energy with the Longtusk Cub, so I'm almost certainly just going to Unlicensed Disintegration it here. Attune with either. Well, we know they have 3 Harness Lightnings and an Incendiary Flow in hand, but I think we're going to go ahead and just let this resolve. If I counter it, then they get to hit me with the Longtusk Cub, which means they're going to gain 2 energy anyways. So we're just going to let that resolve. We're going to hold up the double Disintegration and pass priority, see if they use some energy to pump up the Cub, which they do. And now I'll go ahead and just kill it off. That means they have no energy left currently. But looks like they drew another Longtusk Cub. Okay, a little bit awkward for us. Ooh, but we drew a Torrential Gearhulk. Quite a nice one here. I'm going to go ahead and just pass the turn. No reason to activate the Wandering Fumarole here. And see what the opponent does. Looks like they're going to go for another pre-combat spell. Maybe not. See what they want to do to go to combat here. Feeling pretty confident. We haven't taken any damage, and, well, as a control deck, that feels real good. We're going to want to look to draw some of our card draw methods. There are Painful Truce and Glimmer of Genius in this deck. Question is, do I want to kill this creature right now? And I think the answer is yes. We don't want to give them any extra energy, because the Harness Lightnings are not very good versus the Torrential Gearhulk right now. In fact, the opponent would have to use 2 to kill a Gearhulk. Servant of the Conduit, slightly awkward, but not a huge problem. Radiant Flame's a good draw. To note, Radiant Flames are not good versus Longtusk Cub because they only deal 3 damage, and the Cubs can get much larger than 3/3. The question is, do I want to use the Radiant Flames to kill the Servant of the Conduit? And I don't think that's the answer either. Given that we have a board wipe now, and we know the opponent has 3 Harness Lightning and an Incendiary Flow in hand, I think we can just sit back. Gonna take 2 here, but that's A-okay. Our life is pretty healthy. And, wow, looks like the opponent's just going to straight up Incendiary Flow me right now just to get 3 extra damage. I'm going to let that resolve. I am not worried about 3 extra damage when we're still at 15. And, in fact, we even drew a Galvanic Bombardment to deal with the Servant of the Conduit should we need to. One unknown in the opponent's hand currently. Again, I guess given how much removal I have in my hand, I'm probably supposed to bombard the Servant now. Plus, we can also hold up the Void Shadow for anything following. And Torrential Gearhulk can deal with another creature should they play one, because it can flash back a removal spell. Now, again, the opponent has 3 Harness Lightnings in hand, so there's no point in me countering this when I could just use a removal spell on it, because they're not going to get a clue. And there's a Swamp for us, I think. So this is the tough part here. Do I want to just main phase this Gearhulk so that the opponent cannot draw a land? Like, this Gearhulk is probably not surviving given the double Harness Lightning in the opponent's hand. But I think it's probably okay. In fact, Unlicensed Disintegration now with the Gearhulk on the battlefield is going to mean that we get to deal 3 extra damage to the opponent. So let's go ahead and do that. Pop off the Tireless Tracker. And actually, the opponent just scoops there. Okay. So, a little bit interesting. They decided that because they have no other threats in hand and just 3 Harness Lightnings, they're going to go ahead and scoop it up to the Torrential Gearhulk, which clearly does a ton of work. In this particular matchup, well, Ceremonious Rejection, obviously not something that we're looking to bring in. But are there any dead cards? And, I mean, very clearly, I think Ceremonious Rejection, if I'm talking how bad it is bringing it in, it's probably not very good in the deck to start with. Could bring in the Radiant Flames, could bring in the Weaver of Lightnings, even to the Slaughter, it certainly seems like a consideration. Confiscation Coup, also not the worst, although there are much better targets than what the red-green deck has to offer. Oftentimes, I feel like Painful Truths can be a decent cut. You're looking for, well, ways to not exactly pay life to get your extra cards. So I think we might cut the Painful Truths in this particular matchup. I think it's much better to cut these in the red-white matchup than the red-green energy matchup, but I think this is okay to do. Weaver of Lightning, again, good versus the red-white vehicles or other aggressive decks, but not particular against the energy deck where they can play a lot of larger threats, such as Lathnu Hellion and Voltaic Brawler, etc., etc. Instead, I think I like bringing in the Slaughters, which maybe not great, but they're definitely fine. And I think another Radiant Flame certainly serves as a way to clear out a bunch of 2/2s if the opponent should have them. Transgress the Mind, I'm not too keen on. It does hit a few cards, but as you saw in the previous game, it just didn't have that many targets. I think I do like either bringing in Jace as just another top-end card, or the Confiscation Coup. And I think I'm going to lean toward maybe 1 Confiscation Coup and 1 Negate. Negate can deal with a lot of the problematic removal spells. That being said, I guess this is probably not a matchup where Negate is at its best, and with 2 in the main deck to start, I guess the second Coup is probably slightly better. In fact, the double Weaver of Lightning is probably slightly better than the Negates as well. So let's run it like this. Let's put a few more creatures in, a few more burn spells, and take out more of the counter magic that is unnecessary, and go to Game 2. Alrighty, here we are for Game 2 versus the red-green energy deck. We are on the draw, and our hand is quite poor. Unlike the previous hand, where we had a lot of early interaction and a good mana, this hand just has red-blue and an uncastable Disintegration plus 2 top-end cards. I'm going to go ahead and mulligan down to 6. And this 6 seems to be much better to me. We have turn 1 Spiral Bluff Canal into Galvanic Bombardment, should we choose to, or we can lead with Sunken Hollow into a Thing in the Ice. So I think this is a keep, especially with a Scry. Wandering Fumarole. It's pretty tempting to top a land here. If we do, we'll draw the Fumarole. We'll probably lead with it because the opponent doesn't have a turn 1 play. But that being said, if I go Wandering Fumarole turn 1, because I'm on the draw, the opponent could go turn 2 2-drop, and then I wouldn't be able to bombard it immediately, which means Thing in the Ice would be a little bit more awkward. But I think we'll go ahead and keep it anyways and give our shot at it. So let's keep this hand and see what the opponent leads on. Botanical Sanctum, okay. And, this is very telling of the opponent having Ceremonious Rejection or other counter magic in their sideboard. A lot of the times, and especially at the Pro Tour, we saw a lot of these decks splashing for counter magic. And so I think the Botanical Sanctum probably signifies something like Ceremonious Rejection, Negate etc., etc. Okay, so I could play Thing in the Ice here. I definitely could, and I think that's probably correct to do. This does mean it could be putting it in range of a Harness Lightning should the opponent have it, but I think it's better to get our threat down on the battlefield right now while we haven't used any of our spells yet. Now remember, this means I cannot cast I cannot cast our black card in hand because Sunken Hollow is going to enter the battlefield tapped. But I think this is the correct play, and yeah, if it gets Harness Lightning, so be it. Ooh, a Bristling Hydra, on the other hand, is very, very bad for us. That's a card that gains Hexproof, should they use 3 energy, and the opponent currently has 4. But, again, I think we're sitting fine here. And in fact, I think I'm going to go ahead and bombard their Conduit right now so that they don't have access to more additional mana. It's going to take a counter off our Thing in the Ice. And we're hoping that they don't have Harness Lightning, but we're definitely going to take the Bristling Hydra beats for a few turns. Okay, Voltaic Brawler is fine for now. That means the opponent can use their Bristling Hydra up to twice, currently. So Thing in the Ice might be our only way out of this game. Another Voltaic Brawler, wow, pretty scary. This Canal of ours is going to enter the battlefield tapped. So what's probably going to happen is I'm going to be taking 8 damage, and I'm going to use Unlicensed Disintegration on one of the Brawlers, which I assume is going to be pumped up. Ooh, a Lathnu Hellion as well. I don't have a counter in hand, so we're just going to have to let that resolve. Opponent is quickly going wide. Radiant Flames would have been pretty decent. It would have taken care of both Brawlers and forced the opponent to use a Bristling Hydra counter. We'll see if the opponent uses some of their energy to pump up their Brawlers, which they do. I guess my hope this game is to Disintegration this turn and then anticipate into another cheap spell to transform the Thing in the Ice the following turn. If that's our goal, and because the opponent has so much energy, I'm going to go ahead and Unlicensed Disintegration the Lathnu Hellion, which is the only haste creature the opponent has. I could be taking up to 14 this turn with the Bristling Hydras, but we'll have to see. Okay, so if we hit Radiant Flames as our only spell, I need to cast Anticipate this turn. To note, if I do Anticipate into Radiant Flames as the only instant or sorcery, these Voltaic Brawlers are not going to die because the Thing in the Ice is going to transform first, but I think that's something that I just need to do here. Let's play the Mountain first. Oh, I need to tap blue now. All right. So let's Anticipate, try to hit a spell. And we hit another Anticipate. Okay, that's good for us. I can actually do this on the opponent's turn now. So we'll just pass here. Hope the opponent uses energy to pump up their Brawlers or Bristling Hydra, and then we get to bounce all their creatures. Now, the only downside about this is that because I'm doing this on the opponent's turn, I don't get to attack in for 7 with Thing in the Ice. All right, and the opponent didn't use any of the energy, so pretty smart on their part. We're going to go ahead and just have to Anticipate. Let's see if we can find something good here. Ugh. Mono lands, and you know what? None of these lands enter the battlefield untapped currently. That is pretty gross. I'll take the Sunken Hollow, I suppose, because we could always hit another basic land to get it back. So 2 Voltaic Brawlers and a Hydra in the opponent's hand, who now has 11 energy. I'm not sure how we're going to finagle our way out of this one. I think we just have to play Evolving Wilds and then pass, holding up Glimmer of Genius, since the Confiscation Coup doesn't actually do anything. Alright, there's Voltaic Brawler number 1, which of course we don't have anything to do against right now. And the second Brawler. Opponent has 15 energy, which means they can pump the Hydra 5 times. Definitely not good for us. But their opponent's not going to attack into our Awoken Horror, which is nice. We're going to use the Evolving Wilds first here. Find a swamp. And then use the Glimmer of Genius. And we are going to put both of those lands on bottom. Bombardment's a nice one for us. We can end of turn kill one of the Brawlers, which kind of frees up our mana. We can also steal the other Hydra with the Confiscation Coup, and then attack in for 7, potentially? Again, the problem is the opponent can use this 5 times to make it a 9-8, which the Awoken Horror can't actually attack into. That's really bad for us. I think that's the correct line, though, because the opponent doesn't want to use all of their energy on that. Otherwise, I can use an Unlicensed Disintegration. So I think attacking with the Woken Horror here is correct. And then what I can do is I can either Confiscation Coup the Voltaic Brawler, or I can pass here with activating the Wandering Fumarole and holding up Essence Extraction, which I think is probably slightly better. That way I don't lose to a removal spell or a Lathnu Hellion. So we'll pass the turn here, see what the opponent has. We know none of the cards in their hand anymore, since all of the creatures were the ones that we had bounced. Alright, they play another Voltaic Brawler. Attacking in with both here. And they do use an energy. Okay, so we have to make sure we tap this correctly, leaving up 2 black. We'll activate the Fumarole. Go to blocks on the Bristling Hydra. And it looks like the opponent has Harness Lightning. Okay, so not much I could have done about that. I can only hope to use this extraction response and have the opponent not pump up their Bristling Hydra. I need for them to make a mistake, otherwise we are going to lose this game. Alright, so it looks like they didn't use any of their energy and they're just going to go ahead and go for the kill, which is obviously the correct line. Yeah, Bristling Hydra is a great card versus this deck. And one of the reasons that I might want to bring in Transgress the Mind back from the sideboard is just if they get too much energy, there's nothing I can do about it. Yeah, that's one of the problems with this deck, I guess, that a resolved Bristling Hydra with that much energy is going to be a huge problem for us. And we know the Transgressor Minds also hit Lathnu Hellions, which is fine, but not amazing. Maybe the 2 on the play is good. And honestly, these Confiscation Coup did not seem all that great. So let's run it back like this. And yeah, we're going to go to a Game 3. Alrighty, here we are for Game 3 with Shota Yasooka's Grixis control deck. We are currently 1-1 against this opponent. We are going to go on the play for Game 3 and be a little bit sad about this hand. I don't think it's a mulligan. I do think it's quite poor. The opponent has many 2-drops, and because we don't have an early way to interact, it's a little bit awkward. But being able to counter everything else after that seems like I have to keep this hand. I think we actually lead with a Smoldering Marsh here. It's the only land of ours that currently enters the battlefield tapped. These Spirebluff Canals I can both play untapped the following turns. So the opponent has a turn 1 attune with either off of an either hub. And they're going to get a Forest and 2 energy. Alright. Essence Extraction, not exactly what we were looking to draw. And the best hope here is that the opponent doesn't have a 2-drop, which seems very unlikely. Or their 2-drop they play is like a Conduit. Longtusk Cub is not what we wanted to see. So we're looking for either a Swamp here, or like Galvanic Bombardment doesn't deal with this, or Unlicensed Disintegrations. Radiant Flames is definitely not bad. The problem here is that I have to currently do it for 3. But I think I have to, because if I don't kill this now, because I don't have another solid removal spell in hand, we're not going to get a chance to get the Cub, and they're just going to continuously get more energy. So now remember, they don't have Hydra until very earliest the next turn, so unless they play a Lathnu Hellion here, we should be okay. I'll speak of the devil. So they're going to go up to 4 energy, hit me for 4, and then go down to 2. We'll play our land out. We're going to pass the turn, and we get to counter whatever the opponent plays here. Ideally, they go with the Hydra, but all right, another Hellion. We're going to happily Void Shatter. They're going to attack for 4. They're going to pay 2 energy to keep their Lathnu Hellion alive, and we can again counter the next spell they have to keep them off of any other energy. Second Swamp, not a bad draw. We're going to definitely take some beats here, but we're going to be okay. All right. That is a 12 damage, 3-mana creature. Pretty darn good. Let's see what energy source the opponent can provide. That is not energy. That's a tireless tracker. I actually think I might let that resolve. Because we can Essence Extraction that. We're going to let that resolve. They didn't have a land, so they have to sacrifice their Hellion. Wow, I could even Glimmer of Genius this turn. That is more mana efficient. And then that means next turn, I'm able to Essence Extract their Tireless Tracker and hold up Void Shatter. This is perfect. Disintegration and Transgress the Mind. I think we actually just keep both of those cards in our hand. All right. We do another land, which not ideal, but absolutely fine. We want to use the damage removal on the Tireless Tracker. And we're going to pass the turn here. Probably going to counter whatever the opponent plays next with Void Shatter, Transgress the Mind, hopefully hitting a Hydra, and then, well, we need to draw a threat. Or the opponent could just concede the game, yeah. So, this deck is sweet. Shota Yasooka and I guess a few other people were playing this Grixis control deck, had a really good matchup, especially versus like the Ether Hub decks. The Ether Hub decks were the decks that went all in on the Ether World Marvel or Ether Hub Marvel. And because they have so much interaction, it was an easy way to deal with it. Even the unlicensed disintegrations dealt with the Marvels. So, yeah, this was a great match with Shota Yasooka's deck. Hopefully you guys get to try a similar deck to this Grixis deck in the Pro Tour Gauntlet. Thanks for watching this one.